afternoon, and welcome to the Workforce Observer. Today's guest is Dutta, and I'm very glad to have him. Dutta is a seasoned business leader who has spent his career scaling complex global operations, leading large teams, and driving growth across organizations ranging from fast-growing businesses to Fortune 500 companies. Today, we'll be talking about the rapidly evolving employer of record market, what companies are getting right, wrong, about global hiring, about AI, and much more. Welcome, Dutta. Very happy to have you.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Subhadra, and looking forward to a conversation.
Great. Today there's a lot of buzz around EORs, right? From where you sit, where is this market actually heading?
It's a great question. So much has happened in the EOR space. Initially it was just about getting hiring started in a location. It was a very service-oriented business. Um, it has since then evolved into something that we could probably do with structure, and a lot of companies entered. I think UR is in a very interesting era, which is an AI driven era. And I think it's an era which is going to be defined with how do we balance this need for global hiring at scale to be able to find the talent anywhere you want to. But it's balanced really with this need for compliance. Every country requires different laws, different ways that you can employ and let go of people. So compliance becomes a very important aspect. And then the second thing is employers also care about employee experience. So this convergence of being able to scale this experience up in a very personalized way, compliance, AI, and customer experience, I think is how I see the area evolving.
Okay. The EOR space is quite crowded. We have Deal, Remote, Rippling, besides Pebble, and they're all highly funded and highly visible. What actually matters, do you think, to enterprise buyers today?
I think every company comes with their own differentiation, obviously. We pride ourselves in a few things. We have been in the market for 12 years, and the positioning that we have sort of really anchored on is what we have heard from our customers. Our customers really value compliance as the core. And we took a very deep look at ourselves and said, okay, what do we do with that? And what we have done is we have taken all of our experience and basically built a compliance engine that powers what we call Alfie, which is an external surface that you can interface and talk with, and that's our chatbot.
Mhm.
But it's that same engine that powers all of our workflows. And what that has allowed us to do is to really reimagine every single bit of how our customers and our supported employees, which means the people who are actually on the platform being employed, interact with us. And that has transformed the experience significantly. So we can onboard somebody in as fast as 3 days, depending on local compliance requirements and so on and so forth,
Local laws, yeah, sure.
laws, and so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, we're one of the few platforms that can really help you do a full end-to-end self-serve hiring on the platform. We want to make sure that if somebody wants to hire somebody, they can do that, on the platform just as they would do, go to an online portal and buy a
Hmm.
plane ticket, right? So we want to make it as
Interesting.
simple as that. So to us, the technology is available to make things simple, and that's really our positioning. And that's really what our customers are asking for. Make it simple, make it easy, but retain that compliance core.
So, hypothetical example, I'm sitting somewhere in Europe, want to hire someone in Asia, maybe it's a remote small town in some part of Asia, and I can through your platform very seamlessly. Okay.
Exactly, exactly.
So, given that, what do you think is your biggest operational challenge? And how are you solving for it? Because so many countries, so many places, given COVID and the whole remote work, even if people are coming back to work, still, if you are engaging employees in different parts.
I think always in any situation, it's a combination of people plus processes plus organization as always, right? So
Sure, sure.
it's a never really a simple answer of one size fits all. At the
Right.
end of the day, this business is a people powered business in so many ways. So you obviously use the technology to augment the people. I think that I would classify our biggest challenges in two buckets, right? One is local laws change all the time. And specifically, the world has been going through a place where things have become more and more nationalistic. So, immigration, all of these laws are like constantly evolving. So, we have had to have lots of constant updates and guidance that we have had to not just update our own rules and regulations, but also have the ability to ingest it, but have that human touch to really explain the differences. Because somebody may have been in a process that have honestly in some cases changes has changed in flight for people. So we have had to sort of understand the change and deliver that personal experience to our customers. That's been like a truly a change, less operationally, but more in terms of having that empathy to sort of help the customer and the EE to manage that, right? So that's on that personalized change and the compliance and that balance that I talked about before.
Right, right.
And then on the internal side, it has been a really interesting balance for us. We have always prided ourselves to being a global company, having the same ethos that we sell to our customers, but we're sort of still internally trying to find the right balance between hubbing and having remote. There are some obvious benefits to having a hub because you can learn more, you can interact more. So we do have some core people in Palo Alto as an example.
And that's also your head office, correct? The Palo
That's
Alto?
also, that's
Okay.
also our headquarters. We're looking to sort of build some other hubs in Bangalore. We have a hub in Colombia. We're building a hub in Lisbon. We have a hub in
Mm-hmm.
London. So we do have hubs for people to come together and do business, but we also have other folks who are remote, and we're still sort of candidly wrestling with how do we get that right level of engagement and collaboration. So I think both of those are things I don't think we have really totally nailed yet.
Sure, it's an evolving process. I get that. So, I mean, I'm just curious in this whole compliance thing, right? You have to be compliant because obviously you're employing people everywhere, engaging them. So, how do you do it? A mixture of, besides the technologists who put things in the platform, you have a large law kind of people who are legal, or how does it work? I'm just curious.
So, one of the great things about us is we actually hold the most number of licenses across any of the EOR providers. So, that definitely helps us with access to all the latest and the greatest in terms of because we have to actually do all the filings and all of that good stuff, right? So to be compliant with the government, right? So that's actually the first tranche of this, right? The second, obviously, each of the governments publish all of these things. So we use both a combination of technology as well as our local in-house resources. We have our in-house legal teams. We also participate in various industry consortiums as well as local consortiums to make sure that we are abreast of the changes that are coming in, policy changes that are coming in. We operate in 185 countries, so keeping up to date is always it's not the easiest thing, but we do have a pretty robust system to utilize a combination of all of these channels, and that's ultimately what gets fed into our compliance engine that allows us to scale so well.
So, I mean, usually when we talk about global hiring, it's about compliance, payroll, and people ops, right?
That's right.
So, how, when you're thinking about it from a revenue lens, how does that play out with an EOR?
I mean, from a revenue lens, obviously, we're talking customers, right? So, I mean, let's talk about like why customers want to use UR, right? I think to me, there are many reasons why somebody would go for an EOR, but there are, I think, like two really like strong reasons why I think like people use EOR. One I call flexibility, and the second I call simplicity, right? I'll talk about simplicity first. A lot of our customers, like our AI startups, they're growing fast. And for a lot of them, talent is everywhere. Obviously, there's a lot of talent in Silicon Valley, but talent is everywhere in many cases. And they may have identified a talent in some location. Let's say they have a amazing talent somewhere in France and they want to pay them in France. They would come to a platform and they can very simply, as I've talked about it, go through the platform and the founder or their very slim HR team can quickly go and hire and the payroll will get delivered on time, right? We pride ourselves in maintaining 4 nines on payroll. So that's something that is on the simple side of it. On the flexible side of it, we have many, many growing companies. And with growth also comes with where do you want to grow next? And when we talk about compliance, it's interesting. Like, there's many things about compliance. Of course, you have to file taxes and all of that good stuff. But one of the very important points about compliance is when you're entering new markets, you don't know if you're going to be successful in that market. So you may want to actually try out a market and say, hey, I'm going to put 2 people in there and see if this market is actually going to pan out. So we have many customers who will put in, let's say, 1 or 2 salespeople and try that market out to see if that market will grow. And should the market grow, of course, they will add more people and then eventually create an entity. But if they don't grow, they want to exit the market. And EOR becomes an amazing construct because that flexibility we are talking about is that the risk of exit is now borne by the EOR. The company doesn't bear that risk. So that's where the flexibility comes in.
Okay. I know, I mean, this is the age of AI, right? But I know that your company describes itself as AI powered, human led, which many other platforms also claim, right? What does it actually mean in practice, and where do humans still matter?
Absolutely. I think the best way to sort of put this in my mind is what does one think about a general AI, right? I feel like the moment you say AI, the first thing that comes to somebody's mind is some version of a chatbot. And there's this intrinsic kind of like reaction that happens with people. It's like, oh my God, another chatbot. I think customers don't want chatbots, they want solutions. And that is what we mean when we say we are AI powered human led is we want to make sure that humans are available to actually solve your problems. Let me explain. I talked a lot about, hey, you can go self-service end to end.
Yeah, right.
But if you want to actually get a person to lead you through the entire process, you can get one. And there'll be a
Right.
person to actually handhold you through the entire process.
Right.
But if you're like, hey, I'm in a hurry, I kind of know what I want to know, I've done this before, because the first time, maybe you do need somebody to hold your hand. But the third time you've hired in France, you actually know exactly what you're doing. It's the third engineer you're hiring. You don't need to like redo your whole benefits thing. You don't need to know all the retirement options. You actually know what you know. You don't need somebody to do it for you. But the
Mm.
first time you do need it. So that's the difference that we are trying to sort of make sure you have. The first time, obviously, you want to have a person lead you through it. But the third or the fourth time, you can do it yourself if you want to.
Interesting. High touch is what you're saying. When there's a problem, there's someone there to help, first time or not. Okay. Now, one of the things I guess I think it's kind of overlooked, but maybe not, is employee experience. So someone hired through an employer of record like yours, say they're in Vietnam. Your headquarters is Palo Alto, but they're hired in Vietnam, maybe Poland. They often can feel disconnected from the core company culture. Is that even part of the EOR's responsibility to solve? And also, how do you do it?
This is an amazing question. We really partner very closely with our customers to actually, even at the time of onboarding the customer, actually have honest conversation. What do you actually want us to do? So, as an example, we had a recent customer that is very, very keen to have their culture disseminated properly, and they don't want any distinction, even though they are being hired by us, the EOR. They want their employees to have exactly the same experience as their regular employees. So we talked about a whole bunch of options, how we could make that happen. And some of the things we said was like, hey, we can do a custom onboarding for you, and we can go through all the benefits and everything else, very similar to kind of what you would get as if an employee was being onboarded, right? So those are some things we would do for you so that you get the similar experience. What do other experiences employees get? Every year a benefits refresh happens, right? Normally in an HR, they will do like a AMA, town hall, some version of that, explain the benefits, walk you through the different options, blah, blah, blah. We would do the same things. We would like marry up, explain all the benefits, make sure everything is at par, and then have that code delivered with the customer, right?
Okay.
Then the next
Okay.
thing we would also do is we would make sure we understand what kind of responsiveness they give their customers and match it. We are generally pretty good. We have 24/7 access. We respond to everything within 24 hours. So that has never been a challenge in general. But we want to make sure, like, hey, this is what we provide and it's at par. And if there's escalations, etc. So we generally try to go line by line on all of these experience points and make sure that the customer understands that they're getting the same type of experience that their employee is getting.
That's great. I mean, that's interesting too. Thank you. So looking ahead, what do you see like the global workforce looking like, and what role will employer of records play in this future, do you think?
So I think talent is going to be increasingly global. I think given the general, I talked a little bit about the more nationalistic policies that have kicked in almost everywhere across the globe. So people will try to access more international talent in their location itself, which means in many cases, hiring anywhere would be something that is going to continue more and more. It's interesting. I think I talked a lot about AI and I looked into some numbers around sort of like AI, right? So in the US, at least, we've talked a lot about like AI hiring, etc. But it turns out AI hiring is really concentrated only to 6% of all US companies. So it's not as widespread as we think. But I do believe that number is definitely going to grow given that the number of experiments, etc., that's running everywhere, that's going to grow, and therefore that portion of job categories, etc., is going to grow. So I do think a certain class of types of jobs is definitely going to grow, and that's going to see some growth. And the last thing I'm going to say is employers are going to care more and more about consistent experiences. This is going to be about simplicity, but also not just about the compliance and the payroll delivery. Those are like table stakes, but the quality of the experience that their employees get is going to become even more important as time goes by. Because again, talent is precious. People will want to retain talent, and their experience kicks in.
You know, we've spent the last few years talking about remote work, global talent, AI, skill shortages as separate trends. When you look at them together, what do you think most business leaders still don't understand about how work is changing? What's the gap?
There's been a lot of talk recently about AI, job loss, and so on and so forth. And my personal perspective is with every technology revolution, certain jobs do go away, but different types of jobs do get created. I'll take a very simple example. There's a new job category called forward deployment engineer. This job did not exist 2 years back, and now it's a high demand job.
And what does a forward deployment engineer do?
It's a person who is deploying an AI solution, who sits in the field, understands, looks at the problem, and figures out how to custom deploy an AI solution, right? And this is a job that does not exist like 2 years back. It literally did not exist, right?
Oh,
So
right.
I'm just giving a very specific example of a very
Yeah.
specific job description that is on the rise. And there are many, many job descriptions open. And I'm of course, somewhat biased because I'm in Silicon Valley and I see this. But there are many companies hiring for those jobs. So the meta point I'm making is, of course, there will be certain types of jobs that we will require less of. But there are also going to be a lot of new jobs that are going to be required. And I think what a lot of folks are sort of indexing on, and that's how the human mind works, is the doom and gloom story, and that gets always the big headline. But the new things that are getting created and the upskilling that's required, I think we all have a responsibility to really be mindful of that and push towards that.
Thank you. If you had to advise a CEO today, what's the one workforce decision they should be making now that they'll regret postponing, maybe for a year or 2 years? But you're like, no, think about this. What would you say?
Personally, I would say more than the workforce, I would encourage every CEO slash, senior leadership. Like everybody is very excited about AI and talking about AI and deploying AI. I think it is incumbent on all of us as leaders to be personal users beyond summarizing emails. I think it will give leaders a lot better understanding of capabilities as well as limitations. And I think what that will allow all of us as leaders who make decisions, resource allocations, strategic choices, is to be much more informed about how far and how much risks we are taking with some of these decisions. With every technology, there is a promise and there is a reality. And sometimes both of them are not exactly the same. So there's a lot of promise, and I think there's a lot of possibility, but there are also some limitations. But when you use it yourself, you can see where some of those edge points are. And that just will help you make better quality decisions.
Ah, thank you very much. Thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. I enjoyed our conversation.
Of course. Thank you so much for having, as always. I loved our conversation when we caught up before. And once again, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.